Right, so Nadhim Zahawi and his tax arrangements, let's call them, are back in the news again as we've had some new developments. So set Seatbelt Sunak and his law-breaking aside for a moment. What's the latest on Nads then, Damo? Well, just to briefly recap, you will, I'm sure, be aware that he has just coughed up some £3 million to HMRC to set straight what appears to have been a complex but blatant form of tax avoidance, where shares he once held in the polling firm he was a founder of, YouGov, were being held by Balshore Investments, a family trust of his based in Gibraltar, tax haven, and overseen by his parents, and to which Zahawi himself claimed not to be a beneficiary. In which case, why has he paid tax on it? Well, the shares were sold in 2017 or 2018, triggering funds then going to Zahawi, and it would appear he didn't pay his capital gains tax. A bill of some £3.7 million was estimated, implying Zahawi had got around £27 million for his YouGov shares. This was such a big deal that investigations weren't just happening by HMRC, but the Serious Fraud Office and National Crime Agency were also involved. Now, just as an aside here, if Zahawi only sold his shares in YouGov at the earliest in 2017, how much notice should we have been taking of a polling company significantly partly owned by a then-serving Tory MP, even if they were in an offshore trust run by his parents, in any of their polls of voting intention and opinion of the Tories generally prior to that time of sale that YouGov came out with? They were quoted as a polling source of opinion and voting intention more than anyone else across our media. How deep does that rabbit hole go? Anyway, Zahawi has argued for ages that there's nothing to see here. He has threatened the likes of the independent newspaper who were investigating this with legal action, so-called SLAP letters, SLAP standing for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation, gagging orders or else kind of warnings, foul things. He has done likewise with think tank boss Dan Needle of Tax Policy Associates, and also likely numerous campaigners on such things. One who has publicly come forward, though, is a Green campaigner from Nuneaton called Keith Condacor, where his slap dates back to 2013, well before the sale of these YouGov shares. So is there even more to still come out? Are there more skeletons of a tax nature in Zahawi's closet? For 10 years, Zahawi has been fighting accusations of not paying his proper tax, it would seem, perhaps longer, allegedly resisting paying what was due to the UK Exchequer, thinking he could get around our laws on taxation, taking a different attitude to taxation due to his wealth, that taxation is for us and not for him. And he was, of course, albeit briefly, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, of course, which now seems utterly perverse in light of this latest bout of Tory sleaze. Never mind anything else that might get dug up further back in Zahawi's past. Anyway, there's been some new developments on this story, as I said at the start, because it seems Mr. Zahawi didn't cough up £3 million to HMRC. He coughed up almost £5 million. He had a 30% penalty inflicted on him as well. Why do we get penalties from HMRC then, Damo? Well, we get them for not paying the correct tax at the right time, of course. And it would seem not only was Zahawi banned to rights over this, but was fined for it after he finally held his hands up to it, and he's paid up. However, that isn't the case publicly, because Zahawi is apparently still denying he paid the incorrect tax, doesn't recognise the amounts being discussed in the public domain, and still claims to pay the correct tax here in the UK. A spokesperson for him, though, wouldn't deny the amounts involved had been paid. The fact remains that Nadhim Zahawi remains a Tory MP, remains chairman of the Tory party, and if he has paid up millions to set his tax affairs straight after getting caught, has got off scot-free for it, when people have been jailed for lesser amounts of tax avoidance. HMRC have made him pay up. What has happened to the criminal investigations from the Serious Fraud Office and the National Crime Agency? What is happening with those now? We cannot have people making laws who break them themselves. Zahawi's taxes, Sunak is now 2 fines whilst in office. Johnson remains a politician even if he doesn't turn up half the time after becoming the first Prime Minister in history to break the law whilst in office. Then you have the likes of Michelle Mone, the Tory peer, swanning off on her yacht somewhere, and every other beneficiary of Tory crony contracts with ties to the party. This isn't a government, it's a mafia.